Welcome to the Butterfly Effect Studio. I'm your host, Christian Rebenek. As you know, based in the care of three, small changes can have a big impact. The goal of the session is to uncover how leaders and change makers develop their purpose, competencies, and community to achieve their great positive impact. Every of the episode is packed full of ideas you can apply to your own life. In this conversation, I speak to Irène Kilubi, top 10 experts for brands, for communities, moderator and speaker, Future Personal Phase 2022, 2 times Thing New Work Award winner 2021, Impact of Diversity Award 2021, Xing Top Mind 2020 and 2022, ex-BMW, Siemens, Deloitte, and initiator of Joint Generations. Great to have you in the studio, Irène.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation. I'm so excited.
It's really excited to have you here. Irène, I personally really impressed with your career and how you bring so many different people and organizations together. From startups, you connect with corporates, from young people to experienced people, from people from different backgrounds. Mm-hmm. Maybe to get things started, Irène, tell us a little bit more about what motivated you in your journey to achieve that.
Well, I think I've always been a person that has drive, lots of energy, doesn't want to stand still. And in fact, I have lots of interests, and I feel like nowadays you have so many opportunities, right? To fulfill your dreams, to do what you really want to do and are passionate about it. So that's in fact what I'm doing, you know, like if I am passionate about something, I just try it out and work it out and do my best as I can. And I think what also motivates me is having an impact. Everything I do should have an impact, and I should have the feeling that I have a purpose that I'm following behind it, right?
So beautiful. Yeah, I love that. But I know also how hard or how afraid you can be of making those decisions. And I mentioned the companies you work for, which have been the large corporates, you know, mm-hmm. solid and you can stay there forever. But then
absolutely
and changing your life and pursuing your purpose is quite a risk and it requires courage. How did you do that step? Mm-hmm. How did you deal with this kind of risk and being afraid maybe?
I remember when I told some of my colleagues that I'm about to leave, for example, the first time BMW, they said like, are you crazy? It's like winning in the lottery. Everybody who lives in Munich wants to be here, and now you're leaving and you're still young. You have everything that you can accomplish within this large company. What do you want to do, in fact, you know? But still, I've learned, because there was a transitioning point in my life where I decided to pursue coaching, certificate, you know, educate myself as a coach. And in fact, when I went there, I was a bit naive because I thought, okay, I'll learn here how to coach other people, to learn the methods and the concept behind it, you know, to support and mentor people along their journey. But then I realized, in fact, it was for myself as well, you know, to get to know myself better, what I want in life. And I can recall when we had this first session, our trainer asked us, like, what are your values? And I thought, like, oh, my goodness, what are we talking about? Is it here philosophy, or is it, you know, I just want to learn the techniques. And what we did, in fact, during every session that we did some exercises, and we exercised on ourselves, on our situation, private life, and also our career. And then I realized so many stuff. I feel like at that moment, I first in my life realized what I really want, because beforehand, you know, I grew up near Bonn, and as you know, Bonn used to be the former capital of Germany. So all the ministries have been there, and all the parents of my colleagues at school were either working at the ministry or were teachers. I don't know why, but it was like the typical thing for their parents to do. And so was also my mindset so narrowed. I didn't know what kind of opportunities are there. Like being an entrepreneur was so far away from me, you know? So another option was like to get a good job at DHL or the German Telekom, Deutsche Telekom it's called. And that's pretty much it, you know. And I would think like, oh, you got to have a great job as an employee working for a large corporate, and then your life is secure. And then I realized like, there's no security in life, you know. And I learned from my mom, by the way, who has never been an entrepreneur, that you can only be successful in life if you take risk. And sometimes she says so impressive quotes, although she isn't an entrepreneur, but it really impressed me. But in fact, she's right? And I had one other friend who told me when I was talking to him about me thinking of doing something on my own. He said, like, if you wait too long, your wings will fall apart. And I love this metaphor. You know what I mean? He's talking about, he said, like, now you have the drive, the motivation, but if you don't do it today, you will forget how to fly. And you will even forget that you can even fly.
So beautiful metaphor. I absolutely agree with that. So I know so many people who are stuck in their corporate careers, and there's nothing bad in corporate career, totally.
No.
But I think also, if it's so important, if you feel it's not the right thing eventually, that you open your eyes and say, hey, what do I actually really want? And taking this step, would you? So you stepped out and said you took a coaching course, and then you reflected on yourself. And what happened then? And based on this reflection, you said, okay, now I'm ready to jump into the cold water? Or
Not really. That was a pity. And you know, a funny thing, 2 days ago, I moderated a session. We had a very impressive speaker there, and she had an accident and she's handicapped. Sitting in a wheelchair, and during her life she even nearly died. And then she decided to turn her complete life upside down and to really live the life that she wants to live, and not like do what others are expecting from her. And then I started reflecting. I said, like, do we necessarily always need to wait until something very bad happens, right? Because that's what I did, in fact, you know. There was one situation where there was no way out for me anymore. And I said, like, now it's enough. You have to do it right now. And in fact, at that point, because after BMW, I still worked as an employee afterwards. I worked at Siemens, and then I was at Deloitte. And in fact, I decided to quit when it was, in fact, the best time working there, you know, because I said, like, there are only two options. Either you wait until something very bad happens, or there will not be any change because you'll be progressing with your career, and then you think like, okay, I'm pretty fine, let's forget about it, right? So I chose this way because I've experienced in the past situations where I felt I need to do a change, but I didn't do it and waited until something bad happened. And one of my friends asked me, like, well, when you felt the moment that there's no alternative, no other option than changing the way you're living right now, didn't you notice beforehand something? Were there certain signs that told you that now is the right time to make a change? I said, like, you're absolutely right. And I recalled two situations, but I didn't want to listen. And that's what happened to people. And the speaker also reminded us of it. She said, in fact, some people need to really be really down until they realize it. But I said, like, no, you don't need to do it. Do it when it feels right for you, when you feel uncomfortable and need to change. And that's what I did, in fact. You know, it was the best time in my career. I was about to do the next career move, to get a salary increase. And that's, in fact, when I said, like, I don't want myself to be in that position again, that something very bad happens before I decide to change. So for me, the pain was that so to say, my heart was bleeding because I felt I couldn't really do what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. So, but was it like that? Was it a conscious decision? One day you woke up and said, no, actually, I feel it's now the time to move on? Or was it like voicing it to friends and then discussing it over a period of like weeks and then
Yes,
making
yes.
it like
It
making
wasn't.
it hardening the decision and then taking the step? How was this?
Exactly. It was even before the time I quit my last employer. Even beforehand, when I was at my second employer after graduation, there was always that feeling, like I want to do something on my own, but I didn't do it. Instead, I moved to another employer, right? In fact, because I felt like, okay, there I can still have a combination, a bit of security, but still a bit of, doing what I want to do, express myself, and still, it's not the same thing. Now I realize it, because now I can really do what I want to do. Right? So it was a process, and I didn't even talk so much about it. Rather, people approaching me, because I've been already side hustling since I was mid-20, always side hustling, doing projects aside, so it was not like totally jumping into the cold water. I already knew like what I was supposed to do, where my strengths are, in which area I want to position myself. I knew it beforehand, but I was reluctant to do the last final step. So in fact, to be honest, it was my mom who gave me the last final push,
Your mom is a role model. I have
yes, absolutely. Without being an entrepreneur.
Risk. I love that.
She told me, because I talked to her, every other daughter would call her mom and say like, oh, I'm about to get promoted. Oh, I'm about to receive a salary increase. I was like, what am I supposed to do? I can't leave now because everything's so perfectly fine and they're so happy with what I'm doing. And, and then she just said, you know what? Soon will be Christmas. It's pretty much 3 years ago, around this time. You have two options. You come here and shut up and don't talk about it at all, or you quit before you come here and are the lovely and nice person that I know. So I said like, okay, I think the second option is the easier one.
Oh, I love that. Oh, so beautiful. Wow, I think it's really great, and I think it's great inspiration for many people who maybe are stuck. And I think what you mentioned also with the wings, I like this analogy. It's very similar to this elephant analogy, which was as a child like bound to a stick and he couldn't get apart. But when you're big, you can just run away. But you're so much used to actually being bound to the stick that you don't do anything anymore.
Absolutely.
This is so important that you are literally take these steps, before you're too afraid, because it just won't get much easier. So,
and what I know it doesn't work out for everyone, but I have two approaches. Every time I'm afraid of something, I always say like, in certain situation, think like a child, behave like a child. And in certain situation, I think like, behave or think like a man, because while taking decisions, we are totally different. Sometimes men overestimate what they do. And I said, like, try to think just a little bit like a man, then you're perfectly fine. And in some situations, I think like, because children don't fear anything. And as long as no one tells them that they're not supposed to do something, they don't care. They just do it. So in certain situations, I just think like a man or think like a child. Then you're perfectly fine.
So very true. I
Yes.
just have some stories on top of my mind about my kids, what they do.
Exactly. They don't fear whatever you say, like, don't do it. Otherwise you won't be able to go out or meet your friends. They don't care. They just do. Yeah. No, but you know what I mean? Like, if you don't grow up thinking that you have some limitations and you're not supposed to do certain things, you will not bother at all.
Yeah. Yeah. No, congratulations. But Irene, so how did it went for you? Because you mentioned you've been afraid, you have a career successful, and but then you took the risk. So how do you feel now looking back about that?
Well, it's the best decision I've ever made in my life, you know. Every other morning I'm waking up and just reflect, and I think like, wow, you know, I can choose the clients I want to work with. I can choose the projects I want to work with. And so little small things that where you feel like, okay, I'm in control over it, you know, and everything I do depends on myself, right? Also taking responsibility. And I also learned to take responsibility for my employees, for example, you know, it's not so much about myself being successful, but also I always think, oh, if we're successful, my employees will also be proud working for us. And of course, I have to pay their salary as well. You know, you have a totally different other kind of responsibility, right? That goes along with that. And I learned so much about myself. The first time was, okay, of course, also beforehand, but the major, so to say, milestone that where I realized my responsibility was the first time when I actually employed the first person in the company. And also when I realized there's not a salary coming every month, you know, like the first time I realized, okay, it's not always about taking care of other people, but also taking care of yourself. Like thinking every other month, okay, you have to make sure that everything is running smoothly, right? So,
The life of an entrepreneur is different. Yeah, so true.
so true.
Yeah,
But
I love
still,
this self-responsibility. You need to take care of yourself. You need to take care of others. So, Irene, what is motivating you? What is you mentioned, talked about your purpose, fulfilling your dreams. What is your purpose? What didn't motivate you now in the last years?
It's so funny that you're asking it, because so many people asked me, and at the beginning I didn't quite have an answer to it, but after starting to reflect on it, thinking about it, I felt like, you know, although I'm a Black woman living in Germany, I still feel so privileged. You know, I would say, like, in my Black community, I'm one of the most privileged people around, you know, looking from a perspective, or from a global perspective or societal perspective, I'm not, because I'm a Black woman, not a white man, but in my bubble, I'm privileged. And so I felt like, again, here, some sort of responsibility to say, like, I have the opportunity, I have the voice, I'm lucky to be a great networker, and having this state of mind to take what I feel I'm supposed to, or to have a place somewhere where I feel I belong to. So, and it all started when many people in my so-called Black community, in my bubble, started saying like, oh, we really appreciate what you're doing. We feel really inspired. And how did you manage it? Although you had so many drawbacks, and maybe not the best starting position, but still you made it. And so I felt some sort of responsibility to say, like, of course it's possible, you know, and of course you can do it. And so every project I'm involved in, I try to have a certain impact, you know. So I'm not driven by money. I'm not driven by, how to say, appreciation. That's also something that I learned, because it's something that needs to come from yourself, from within, not from the outside. Yeah. Because once there are a group of people who disrespect you, or are not your supporters, you might feel frustrated and demotivated to do something. But when you feel like, okay, what I'm doing is right, is a good thing, no matter how many people are against you, you will still move forward. And I think that's very important for an entrepreneur, to have this kind of mindset. right?
Irene, tell me a little bit more about this because you mentioned the struggles and the things you need to learn. Tell me more about what have been the most important things looking backward on the most important skills maybe you have learned.
Mm-hmm. You know, in the past, I used to hate it when I grew up, people said like, yeah, oh, you're so communicative, so creative. Got to do something, in marketing or, in the fashion industry and so on. And I didn't like to hear it because I said like, I'm also very smart. I'm good at math. I'm good at, tech topics and so on. And I felt like people were only seeing the communicative Irène, the networking Irène. But now when people said it, I just really, really appreciate it because I feel it's not something that everyone can do. Many people tell me like, oh, you have the gift. And now I can really see it as a true gift to bring people together, to inspire people, to motivate people. And I always felt, oh, it's nothing special. Everybody can do it. No one sees that, I'm very good at analytical thinking, conceptual design. No one was seeing it. I said, like, I don't care because the people who work with me, in fact, they're always surprised. They say like, okay, of course you have a PhD. You are probably not that stupid. That's what I was assuming. But now working with you, you're so much more than the social media, Irène. In fact, you're working your ass off, And that's in fact, again, here I learned you don't need the appreciation from other people, knowing like you work your ass off, right? As long as the right people know it and you are surrounded by the right people who appreciate it and like working with you on a common goal and do their best to accomplish it with you together.
So if you're talking about the right people, let's talk quickly mention your team members, and please, if you're looking for the right team members, what kind of skills do they need to have? What is the most important things you're looking at?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's also another thing that I had to learn. Because I received feedback from some people from my network. They told me, Irène, you're really used to working in high-performing environments. But you have to realize that not everyone is like you, who gives 200%, who has this drive. And I noticed you don't always need those high-performing people. Sometimes you just need people who just are very good in operational tasks, who are just there. They are not the visionaries. They are not the goal getters, so to say, but just people who just do their job. They do what they're being told and on a daily basis, or maybe also people who are willing to do repeat tasks, right? So it's important to have the right balance, right? Of high performing people, but also people, they are still smart, but they don't necessarily need this high level of action because they just want to do their task. They're good at it. They're experts and specialists. So that's what I learned, to have a good balance out of it. Yeah? And
you mentioned already that you started coaching, but you also helped you to self-reflect. Is this something you're looking into in your team members as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what I noticed most of the time when I interview people, they always tend to talk about what they have already been doing. Mm-hmm. And then I ask them, for example, have you been doing this? And then, of course, most of the things they say, I've never done it, And then they start repeating, but I've been doing this and this and that. And then I ask them, like, is there anything you haven't done in the past, but you feel like I would really like to do it in the future? I want to learn and I want to grow. And I have one example for my team members. Suddenly, she realized something she's never done before, but she's actually really good at it. Because she just started off, she was even better than on the things she's been doing all her life, So I'm also open towards it, because when you're an entrepreneur, there are also many tasks that no one has done before, And although, for example, I'm used to do some conceptual work, setting up new formats for clients, there will still be a setting or a topic I've never done before, but this is in fact where I grow and what I really enjoy. And so having someone there on your side, one person maybe who has done it before and another person who's also totally open-minded, is a good combination to bring you further. So that's what I'm looking for. And of course, it's really, really important that people can relate to the mission and to the topic you're pursuing. I feel it's very, very important. For example, someone entering Joint Generations, for example, there would be a person who's 20 who would say, like, I don't like old people. What's the point of joining Joint Generations? You know what I mean? So, and also understanding what is behind it,
So it's cultural fit on the one hand side, growth potential. You mentioned you help them to reflect actually on their potential and maybe challenge them also to grow personally, which I think is really important. That's I think important for everybody, that they not just work on their purpose, but they need to look into develop their competences and explore new fields. Talking about people and the community, what have been in your past the most? And you mentioned your mother. Your mother is already set as a role model here, but who is the other? Who helped you the most?
Christian, now can't hear you anymore. You were gone you mentioned your mother. That's the last thing I heard.
I was just mentioning about your personal community who has helped you. Who has helped you in your life? Who was important actually to be successful?
The strange thing is that people who inspired me the most probably don't even know, because there are so many things that I realized later on, There's one example I will never forget. Or people asking me just smart questions to help me reflect, right? I will never forget, I was at the beginning of my 20s, and there was someone from university who asked me, like, what is the most precious thing that a person can give you? I can't remember what I said at that moment, but I can remember what he said. He said, time. And at that moment, I don't know, I didn't really understand. I said, like, oh, okay, time. But now I realize it more than ever.
Yeah.
And then I realized, because I'm not a greedy person at all, but considering my time, I turned out to be very greedy on my time. And there's so many situations in particular where I tell some of my friends and my family also, you are wasting your time, because I would never spend like 3 hours talking to someone just complaining. I experienced so many times that people spend their time phoning with people, just complaining about the whole world life. You can do it 5 minutes because we always have our downtimes, but spend the rest of the 2 hours and 55 minutes looking for solutions. I'm a totally solution-oriented person, and I'm always trying to see the good things in life, and that helps us totally. Time is the most precious resource you have ever, and use it wisely. Because I always think at that time, I could be helping out somebody out there. Right? Instead of spending my time with negative energy.
So I fully agree. I always think in the circle of influence. If you have things that you cannot control, and the more you talk about the things you cannot control, the less effect you have with your life, and the more time you spend actually on the things you have in your circle of influence. If you focus on that, then you can change it. And out of it comes also fulfillment of your own life. So I think it's really important actually to spend the time wisely. And I'm from Austria, and Austrians are famous for complaining as such. Yeah. So
Really? So are the Germans, right?
I heard that. Yeah. And I think it's so important to really spend, well, you mentioned, spend time consciously on things you really want to influence. And I think even things you typically would say, you can complain a lot, but just making the choice, saying, hey, there's something you just don't want to complain, but actually you want to influence as well. It's already a big thing. And then you can start thinking about how you can maybe change that. Because I believe you can change everything, just not at once. And maybe you need to build up certain abilities until have a bigger impact. But I was always impressed by, and there were people like Greta Thunberg who has a large impact with just her little voice, literally. But because of this ripple effect, this butterfly effect, that you tell one person, that one person tells the next person, then eventually a big thing comes out of this.
Yes. And when talking about communities, right? I also liked Ariana Huffington totally, because she was one of the pioneers in terms of mental health, making it so large, so huge with her great community, which is in fact more than a community, even a movement, right? It's so impressive. To put it in a nutshell, people who inspired me were many different people. Could be the bus driver who said something very, very smart that made me think. It could be my doctor who said something very wise. It could have been my teacher, my professor. Most of the time, those people don't know it, but sometimes it was just like one sentence, like with the wings things and the time is precious, that totally changed my view and perspective on things, or this coaching situation, or when I was doing my PhD as well. Beforehand, I was a totally unstructured person, but I learned to bring a bit of structure also in my life, in the way I behave, in the way I plan my activities. So there were many different occasions where I could learn from others and potentially grow myself further.
Wow. So for the audience here, I think this is a great takeaway to listen close to the people you experience.
Yes.
There could be some great insights for your life in there today.
Yeah, sometimes also in the metro, when you listen to people talking, sometimes definitely. I'm also someone who, although I love to talk as well, but I love to listen as well. Like, what are people talking about? Sometimes, because I don't have so much time to listen to the news, I get to know everything when I'm in the train or in the bus, in the metro, because people are talking about certain topics, It's totally interesting,
The news will come to you.
Excuse me? What did you say?
The news will come to you. I think it's better
Absolutely.
than watching too much news and spending so much time literally on what's happening. Irene, looking at a little bit of time, which advice would you give your younger self when you have finished school, looking back?
I would always say, take it easy. At the end, everything will be good. And in fact, I would still do what I did now, to say, try yourself out and never stop growing and learning. And in fact, everything you need is already inside of you. Just give it an opportunity, the occasion to get out there.
Beautiful, beautiful. Is there anything else, Irene, you would like to share with our learners?
Oh, there's a lot, because we don't have so much time. Because when you know me, when I get started, there's no ending anymore. Advice. I would always say, really try whatever you do to find the right people who support you. And, we have so many societal challenges, Also try to think to spend only 5 or 10% of your time, also to think of how can I contribute to society? What can I do to make our world a better place? Just spending 5 or 10% of your time, and that's essential.
Irène, thank you very much. That was a great closing remark. I think we can all have a large impact, and there are a lot of challenges, I think, in our society, and we can have a positive impact on that by concentrating on this. Thank you very much for joining us in the Butterfly Effect Studio. Thank you very much for all the insights you shared. I think this was very insightful and very, what we can derive directly for our daily life.
Thank you so much.
Stopping